Okay, so my thing is glitching, but I've seen like these Audacity stitches about ghosts, and I've had a couple of ghost experiences since I've been like 16, and I'm gonna tell one. So my first one was in Spain when I was 16, but I'm gonna start off with like the most recent one that's like fresh in my brain. So I have always kind of believed in ghosts, but this was the one that like really stuck with me. So I worked as a realtor in Chicago for like a year, and you get to work with some really cool buildings. And I had a client that wanted to see a bunch of high rises, but she wanted to see one historical building in particular. And it's really, really uncommon to find a high rise or like even a mid-rise that is historical in Chicago that's like a managed building, because that's what I primarily worked in. And she wanted something that had like 20 floors or more. And so I found this building, or she found this building. She's like, can you tour it? And I was like, sure. So we looked at like 2 new construction high rises, and she's like, I like it, it just doesn't have the character that I'm looking for. And like, bear with me, this is all relevant to the story. So she was like, these are great, but they just don't have the character I'm looking for. So we skipped the other 3 buildings that I had to show her, and I took her straight to this like mid-rise in the Loop that was built, I think, in like 1904. And it had, I think, 20 floors. Don't quote me on this. But I'm not going to say the building, because even though I had a ghost experience in this building, I would 100% live here. And I don't want people to not rent there because of a ghost story. So we get to the building, and she's like in love with the outside already. And then we go in the lobby, and like I could tell she's sold. I was sold. And we meet the leasing agent, and you know, we're walking towards the, you know, the leasing agent for the property that lets you into the unit and show you the unit and stuff. And we're walking towards the elevator bank, and there's a picture of John Dillinger and his wife. And if you're not from Chicago, you're not familiar with John Dillinger, he is like the really famous gangster that was also famous like Al Capone, and was gunned down in an alley. They made the movie Public Enemies with Johnny Depp about him. And he and his wife were in pictures on either side of like the hallway that led to the elevator. And the lease agent was like, oh yeah, he this used to be the German cultural center, and they had a lot of galas. And if you remember that scene in Public Enemies where Johnny Depp meets Marianne Cotillard's character at like the coat rack, they met in real life at the building that we were touring that is now an apartment building. And so I'm a history buff. I was like, oh my God, that's so exciting. Like, John Dillinger met his wife here, you know, he's in psychopath, but like part of Chicago history. And my client was totally roped in. So we go upstairs, and they made the ballroom, have not changed a thing. Like the flooring, chandeliers, they just moved gym equipment in. It's so pretty. And then we go up and we look at the pool, and it's an original 1920s pool. They have not changed a single thing. It's like tiling, everything is so, it's like you stepped into a time capsule. And we were just like blown away, me and my client. I was like, if you don't take it, I will. And we go and see the unit, and I don't remember what floor it was on. It was on a higher floor because it was up past the L. And I think I mentioned that this building was in the Loop, because that's important, because that's where you get some more historical buildings. She loved the unit. She's like, it was a little dark, but it had like domed windows and like vaulted ceilings, and it was just chef's kiss, perfect unit, huge for a 1-bed. And she was like, oh, I think I'm gonna take it. And I was like, awesome, love it. Loved the client, loved the unit. What is there to like be upset about? We get in the elevator. And I press the 9th floor. And then as the doors are closing, this woman gets in the elevator. And she's like really short. I mean, I'm 6 feet tall, and so everybody's a little short to me, but she was really short. And she was wearing like this pleated maroon skirt and like this buttoned up tight-ish blazer. that was also maroon, and like these little heels. And I was like, you know, in Chicago, you see people that dress like very thrift store chic. And so I was like, maybe this is one of those girls. And so I was like, what floor? She just doesn't answer me. And my client is like, what floor? She doesn't answer her. And the leasing agent is like, and I was like, so the woman just doesn't press a floor. The door's closed. We're going down the floors, and then I was like, oh, do you live here? Like, how do you like the building? Because I'm like, nudge, nudge, like, tell me about the building. And the woman just doesn't answer. And I don't think I mentioned that the elevator got really cold when she walked in, like 20-degree temperature drop. And the woman's just not answering me. And so I just turn and I take a closer look at her face, and she had like the really maroon lipstick. You know, if you Google like a picture of like Marlene Dietrich, the actress in like the 20s, or like Mae West, that makeup, like super thin eyebrows, very defined lips with like the very defined Cupid's bow. And I was like, people don't do their makeup like that anymore. You know, like that's just not something that you see on the street. And her face was like really like pale and like waxy looking. And my client just kind of started to like freak out. And then the door, our elevator just stops, and she gets out on like the 12th floor. And I know you guys were like, the 13th. No, it was the 12th. And I was like, okay, have a good day. She just gets out of the elevator, walks very smoothly, or not say it was a glide, and just turns and goes right. And I get out of the elevator and I look, and the woman's gone. The woman is gone. She's not in the hallway. And I did not get out of the elevator with enough time for her to like have gone into an apartment. So that was not a person. And then the elevator just gets warm again. Super warm. This was also July. The elevator doors closed, and the leasing agent is like freaking out. She's like, I'm so sorry. Like that's, you know, and it immediately like 2 and 2 was John Dillinger's wife. It was the lady from the picture. This lady from the picture. And the leasing agent is like, sometimes people see her. Sometimes people see her. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't do anything. And then my client is like, oh my God, I knew something was up. I knew something was up. And at first she was like, it doesn't really bother me. It doesn't really bother me. And the leasing agent is like, yeah, sometimes like people see her in the laundry rooms, and like, you know, they'll like see her, you know, outside apartment doors. And that was when my client was like, So she went with one of like the classic, like all glass high rises. And she was a great client, but she got spooked. So yeah, that's one of my ghost stories. That's the most recent one. That was in 2022. And yeah, that was crazy. That was really crazy. It was really cool. Also, if you're like from Chicago and you're able to figure out what building I'm talking about, please don't dox it, and move there, because she's a harmless ghost. She's historical, and everything that I've heard, she seems pretty chill. So yeah.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go.
Hello, it's me, back for part 2. I didn't think people were actually going to be interested in hearing more, because like the top stitch of that video is a woman who had a demon baby living in her house. A demon baby. So you can understand why I don't know why people want to hear more of my stories. But I got a lot of people. There was 4,000 people that saw my video and counting. And that was really cool that people were like, I want to hear more stories, because I have a decent amount. So I'm going to tell a big one that happened to my dad, and it also happened to my mom. So some background, because that is important for the story. My family didn't do like European vacations growing up. We would go to Florida, yes, but we are big history buffs, and we are more interested in going on like historical tours of like historically significant sites. So like Jamestown, Yorktown, Williamsburg, Gettysburg, the Alamo, you know, places like that. I ate that up. That was me. I'm like a weird kid. I mean, I'm 28. I'm not a kid, but I was a weird kid and continue to be. So, also, we are a big military family. My dad is a Vietnam veteran. I wear his friend who went missing in Vietnam, his POW bracelet, MIA, POW MIA bracelet. And so we're, big into like the military stuff. So one summer, we decided to go to this place called Mackinac Island, which is in Michigan. You can only get there once you get up to Mackinac City. You have to take like a ferry that's like 30 minutes to the island, and it's old. It was the site of a Revolutionary War battlefield. Very historic, very haunted, and it's stunning. No cars are allowed on the island. It's all original like architecture, like they use horse and buggies as like their Ubers. I mean, it's so freaking pretty. So yeah, it's really, really cool. And part of the haunted is that right below the Revolutionary War fort that is right on like the green when you get off the ferry, is a massive green space where people like play like frisbee and like I'm sure pickleball now, but it's been a long time since I've been there. And it was a ancient Indian burial ground that in like the early 1900s, they decided, let's just dig them up and dump them in the lake. And so, yeah, that probably doesn't help with the activity on the island. So my parents booked a cottage at the very top of the island, which is like a 2-mile bike. Most people bike around the island. And or a 2-mile, horse and buggy ride. And so to get up there, you had to pass a battlefield, and it's very dark at night. There's like no lights. And our cottage was actually built on the site of the island's unsolved murder. And our cottage was the cottage right next to where they found the girl's body, unalived. So interestingly enough, nothing ever happened with that. We didn't have any experiences in that place. But yeah, so that was wild. But one night, anyway, we were at dinner, and it was like, it wrapped up at like 11:30. We were staying out. We were just kind of like hanging and talking with people. And my dad was like, okay, we don't want to walk. We don't want to bike. It's dark. There's no trail lights going up to this cabin villa place. So we get a dude that has a horse and buggy. He's like an older guy that's been driving it for 30 years. And he's like, hop on it. So we hop in. It's my dad in the front with him. They're chatting away. The horse, he's not saying much. And then me and my mom in the second row in the back. And then there's one row behind us that doesn't have any seats. And this, I don't know if I said this, but this was the year before my sophomore year of high school. So I was about 15. And my mom and I are just like quiet. We're tired. She had wine. She's like, I'm tired. So my dad, as I said, Vietnam veteran, he's very jaded, skeptic, quiet, occasionally angry. And I hear him gasp. And this shocks me because my dad doesn't believe in anything. I mean, he doesn't believe in anything. He's not scared of things. He doesn't believe in anything. He thinks ghosts are crap. He's scared of people because he's like, people are the greatest animals of all. And I'm like, preach, I agree that. But he shrieks and he's like, who is sitting behind Stephanie? And I was like, no one's sitting behind me, Dad. And he's like, there was somebody sitting behind Stephanie. And we're passing this like big open field, and the driver looks back and he's like, oh, well, what did he look like? And my dad describes him, and he's like, yeah, we have a couple of Revolutionary War soldiers. He's like, I'll be driving people up and down to the cottages, and he'll just sit in the back and he'll just get out when he feels like it. And I'll see him in like my rearview mirror. My dad had nothing to say to this. He did not know how to react. He didn't like know what to say. He's like, I don't know how to explain that, but there was somebody behind Stephanie, and he maintains that to this day. He's like, I don't know how to explain it. Ghosts are total crap, but there was a man in colonial garb behind Stephanie. So on to the next story. The next day, my mom was like, that was so cool. So she goes down and she signs us up for a ghost tour, but it wasn't just a ghost tour. It was like a paranormal ghost hunt. and like a Ghost Adventures, like lockdown style. So we hustle down the mountain, you know. I'm like, we're going by the battlefield, like wave. I'm like, hey, hope I don't see you tonight. No, like, no offense. And just in case, you know, the soldier was there. It's like, go rest, be at peace. Anyway, we go down, assemble with the ghost crew. There's like 3 other families, and they tell us that they're going to an old soundstage, which is probably the most active place on the island. So I'm like, this is sick, right? Like, this is awesome. So background, again, they filmed a movie called Somewhere in Time on the Island, and the cast was so insistent that they were having like ghost experiences that they made production shut down, and they refused to film in that soundstage or on the island. So they moved production for a movie that was based on the island to be moved off the island because they were so scared. So apparently this soundstage, they go in, they tell us the history. It's built on, shockingly, an old Indian burial ground. And a guy used to work in it named Harvey, and his wife left him for another guy that worked in the soundstage, and he himself and haunts it. And there was something to do with a fire. So they lock us in. It's pitch black. They pull out like all the sound machines and stuff, and I'm like, I don't, you know, always been interested by ghosts, but I'm like, I don't want to get like bit by one, you know. So they start telling us that one of the things that the actors would experience was burns on their body in the shape of a handprint, like 3rd-degree burns. And they were so alarmed by this, they'd have to get medical care. I mean, it was like bubbling burns in the shape of a male handprint. And that was when the cast was like, enough. And so they start turning on the machines. And after about 5 minutes, I hear my mom go, ow, God. And I was like, what? She's like, I think I got bit by something. So anyway, fast forward, we didn't see anything, shocker. And we go back up the mountain, top the island, go to bed. Everything's fine. We think mom got bit by a bug, whatever. Wake up in the morning, I hear a blood-curdling scream. Run down the hallway, my mom's in the bathroom. She has her nightgown lifted up, I can see her calf. There is a man-sized, I swear on my grandfather's life, there was a man-sized handprint on my mother's, handprint burn on my mother's calf. And, like, complete, like that. She's freaking out. So she's like, go get my camera. My mom was really big into taking pictures on these trips. She had this massive Canon camera. I take a picture of it. And she's like, we need to go down. I think my dad was fishing or something. He wasn't in the cottage. So we go down to the paranormal place, and we're like, is this what the actors were experiencing? And they're like, this is exactly what they were experiencing. You need to also go get medical care. We couldn't get into the little clinic on the island, so my mom basically just bandaged it up, put some Neosporin on it. Was very freaked out. And so we get back to the cottage, and my dad's there. Where were you guys? And my mom was like, look at this, Stephanie. She's like, this is what it looks like now. Still terrible, but she unwraps it, and but she's like, I want to show you how it looked this morning. I go and get the camera, pull up the pictures from the morning. Her leg's there. The pictures that I took are there. The pictures of the burns are not. The burns are not on the leg. The burns disappeared out of the photos. So like you could see them on her leg in person. You couldn't see them on the photos. They were not in a single photo. To this day, they're not in the photos from the trip. All the pictures I took where there should have been a burn are in the memory card, but the burn is out of the picture. So yeah, my mom had that happen to her. Traumatized her so bad. She still has a scar on her leg. Traumatized her so bad. I mean, this thing would not go away. She won't watch a horror movie. She won't watch a ghost movie if there's anything demonic. I mean, she won't even turn on a Ghost Adventures in the house. And yeah, that was the last time we ever went on a ghost tour, and scared the crap out of all of us. Not enough out of me to never go again, but that also didn't happen to me. But yeah, it disappeared out of the photos. And yeah, my mom had a phantom poltergeist burn on her leg. So I have more stories. This is super fun, just getting to do this. So if you would like to hear, I actually have the biggest one that is bigger than this one, took place in Spain. So if anybody wants to hear it, let me know. If not, thanks for asking to hear more stories. And yeah, these are our ghost adventures. Okay, so I'm back for part 3 of this ghost saga that people have asked me for the part 3 for. I'm on a road trip with my boyfriend to go to Canada. So if it's spotty, it's because we're going to Canada. Okay, so my story takes place in Spain in 2012, and yeah, let's get into it. So I was basically there for my dance company, and this story takes place in Ronda, which is, I believe it was in Ronda, I could be wrong, but it was whatever city that the Spanish Inquisition started in. So there was about 30 of us that were performing our dances around the country, and it was a smaller group. My mom came as a chaperone. This is important to the story. And we get out of the bus at this destination, and the town is old. It's very, very old. The building across from where we were performing was where they held like the trials for the Inquisition, and then the building that we were actually performing in was a modern church built on the foundation of a home church business from the 1400s. And so we were going to perform that night, so we did our rehearsals, we did everything, and then to basically put our stuff away, we had to go down into the basement, and there was this huge spiral staircase that went down, and I mean, it's an old basement foundation, so it's a decently sized spiral staircase going down, and this is relevant to the story. And when you get to the bottom of the stairs, you walk straight ahead, and then you turn, and it was like this big open room, and then you turn right, and then it was like a room of like old brick and cement walls with 3 rooms on each side with electricity, but their own plug-ins with like hair dryers and sinks. And then if you walked straight ahead, then there was like the big getting ready room with like the long vanity and the bathroom stalls. So this is actually very important to the story. So there was a dance that I was not participating in because I had been out sick the year before, and I just chose not to be in this particular piece. So that night I knew I was going to have to be in the basement by myself, and when I got to the building initially, it was just kind of a little bit off. There was just something about the vibes. It wasn't like the way it looked, it was just, there was just something a little bit weird about it. And so I was kind of prepping myself that I knew during the last number of the performances of the night I was going to be in the basement by myself in this building. So fast forward, we all put our stuff down in the basement. Everybody starts getting ready for the show. We go on stage. I get done with my number. I'm the only person that comes downstairs. And there's nobody else in this wing of the building except for me. And anybody else that's in the building is either backstage of the theater, the stage, or in the audience, and they don't have access to this part of the building. And I go down, basement's pretty creepy. I mean, it's the original foundation of whatever was there before. So I'm putting my stuff away, and I hear men's boots walking down the stairs, like a thunk, 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 and it wasn't like a sneaker, it was like a thick, heavy shoe. And I was immediately like, who is that? We didn't have any man in our group that was big enough to make noises like that wore shoes like that. There wasn't a man in the building that was wearing shoes like that. So that was a little weird. So I went to the bottom of the stairs and I called up and I was like, hello, you know, and then I called one of the chaperones' names, and I was like, hello, is this so-and-so? And nobody answered. So I went back into the changing room, past all of those 3 rooms on each side, and went back into the changing room packing up my stuff, and then I hear it again. And I go to the bottom of the stairs, and it's just like getting louder. It's like coming closer towards me, like coming down the stairs. And I was like, hello. And so I decide to walk up the stairs and see what's going on. And I walk up the stairs, and I'm like going up the spiral, and the footsteps get louder, and then I hear the footsteps and feel this cold breeze, and the footsteps pass me, and now I'm freaked out. And so I run back down into the basement, and I don't know why I did that, but I run back down into the basement, and I run into the changing room that I was originally in, and then all of a sudden the footsteps stop, and then there's a massive crash, like a car had run into the building, and all of the lights start flickering, every single light, and all of the hair dryers turn on one by one in the rooms, like the individual changing rooms that are plugged in by themselves, by the way, in their own outlets. The water starts running, and the toilets start flushing, and then the footsteps start again, except they start getting really, really, really loud, and they start going faster. So I freak out. I dropped my foundation bottle on the floor, and it broke. I ran upstairs. I ran backstairs. I told the dance coordinator, I was like, something's going on. Is there somebody downstairs? She's like, no, why would there be anybody downstairs? And I asked the curator of the building, like, what's going on? Who's downstairs? And he's like, I'm the only man that has access to that part of the building, and I've been back here the whole time because I have to watch the show to make sure everything's going okay in the building that I manage. So, and I forgot the part of the story where when I ran up the stairs to go find humans, as soon as I hit the top of the stairs, all of the hair dryers, everything turned off, went back to normal, the boots stopped, the stomping stopped. So yeah, that scared me immensely, and the only way, there's no explanation for it, because all of the hair dryers were plugged in individually in each of their own rooms. You would have had to have 6 people plugging in and turning on hair dryers. You would have had to had 6 people turning on the faucets, turning on and off the lights. I don't understand it. It scared me so bad. And there was some other stuff that happened on that trip that happened to my mom, so I can talk about that in another video because people seem to be enjoying these. But that was probably by far the most terrifying one. And plot twist, when we left, we asked the curator like what the building was, and he was like, oh, this was the site of where the first family or first person in the Inquisition got accused. So there's that. So that's my ghost story about Spain. Terrifying. Beautiful country though, you should totally go. So let me know if you want more.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So about a month ago, I had went on an educator tour with the Air Force, and they actually flew us down to San Antonio, Texas, where we would be doing the tour on several bases. And they had actually reserved rooms for us at the Manger Hotel. So if you look at the Manger Hotel, or if you look at my my videos of the Manger Hotel, you can kind of actually see, you know, how it looks and what have you. It is a very beautiful hotel. However, it's really, really old. It was built like in, I think, the 1850s. So anyway, I had told my boss, I said, hey, you know, the Air Force is flying me down. Hey, you know, and I'm telling him about it. He was like, oh, I stayed there before. It's haunted. What? So I go and I start Googling it. Sure enough, 36 to 41 ghosts had been reported to have been haunting the Manger Hotel. And I hope I'm saying it right, Manger Hotel. So I started to get a little worried. I always like look at haunted stories, haunted this, haunted that on TV. I kind of love that type of stuff. However, staying somewhere and looking at it on TV is 2 different stories. And I knew I was going to be staying by myself. So, I kind of psyched myself up. I kind of went back and forth with like, should I go? Should I go? Should I go? Should I go? So I was like, no, it's a great opportunity, which it turned out to be a really great opportunity, to be able to, and like really, find out what the Air Force has in store. So, went down there the first night we got there. We got in there, got settled. I went up to my room. Before I went up to my room, when I'm checking into the hotel, when you're walking in, the hotel, again, like I said, is really old. So it has a lot of antiques and what have you in there. Teddy Roosevelt has been there many times, and they said that he's still there. So when you walk in, the minute you walk in, it's like a eerie feeling. It's like heavy and eerie. So I walk in and the place is beautiful, but it's an eerie feeling. I check in, I go upstairs to my room. No problem, no issues. So when I get into my room, I always turn on all the lights when I'm in a hotel. I don't know why I do it. I just do it, and especially since I was going to be staying by myself and they had already said it was haunted. So anyhow, I turn on, I get ready for the mixer that afternoon, that night, and I go to the mixer. Be reminded, I didn't turn any of the lights off. So when I come back, lights are still on. I eat my food, and I forgot that I had, didn't have my charger. So a lady that was staying in the hotel across the street at the Crockett said that I can use her. She was a part of the tour as well. So I go get her charger. I come back and my bathroom light is off. Now, this is about 8, 9 o'clock at night, so there's like no housekeeping, no nothing like that available that are supposed to be in your room. So I'm in my mind trying to figure out, like, how did this all happen? It freaked me out, but, I'm like, okay, I probably turned it off. I'm trying to rationalize it in my head because I knew this is Monday. I have all the way to Friday to be here. So anyway, and it still just kind of gives me goosebumps when I'm talking about it because you being in a room by yourself and you never know what's going to happen. You're hearing all these ghost stories. So, then after that, I start hearing like the door shutting, but the door was already shut. So it was like noises like the door was shut. So I was like, okay, well maybe that's somebody on the outside. Maybe there are people in the hallway, but I didn't hear any talking. I didn't hear anything like that. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna brush it off. Somebody went in their room, shut the door. It's like like I'm just trying to figure out, I'm trying to rationalize it in my mind. Like, so anyway, I said, when I go to sleep tonight, I'm going to turn on all the lights. I'm gonna sleep with all the lights and the TV on. And, that's how I'm going to sleep. So I go to sleep. I wake up and I'm woke, but my eyes are closed and I notice the TV is off. So I was like, okay, well, it was on a timer, but I instantly open my eyes. Bathroom light is off. Bathroom light is off. Now I'm in a hotel room by myself. Bathroom light is off. So I instantly jump, put my clothes on, like I take a shower, put my clothes on. I'm scared as heck. So I run out the room, not like all crazy or anything like that. I run out the room. So I go down to the front desk and I say, hey, I'm in this room. Hey, is there anything going on? And the lady was like playing it off like, no, but if you like to change rooms. And I'm thinking to myself, no, I don't want to change rooms because if I go somewhere else and it's even worse. No. So anyway, we get to our first class and, the Air Force, one of the Air Force commanders said, hey, did anybody, they're joking like, hey, did anybody experience something? I was like, yeah, I did. Let's talk about it. So anyway, nobody else I think it was about 40 people there. Nobody had really experienced nothing. People were like, oh, it was eerie. It was this, it was that, but nobody experienced nothing. So I'm thinking to myself, like, I really didn't want to tell people because I felt like they thought I was going, like I was crazy. So I go back to my room and I told the entity that was there, I said, listen, we're going to have to be here together from Monday through Friday. It seems like you don't like this light on. So I'm going to keep this light on if you just leave me alone. And to be honest with you, I felt eerie, but I really didn't have anything else going on. However, the people were with me, reported that their lights kept flickering. And then also I had another guy that said his backpack just like flew off the bed. So If you are ever at the Manger Hotel, or if you have experienced anything in the Manger Hotel, I would love for you to comment, or, anything on this video, and give me your opinion on it.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So this actually happened to me last night. I was sitting at my desk doing some work when I looked over at the monitor for our security camera because I saw some movement. And what I saw was what looked to be like a little girl walking down our sidewalk. She was coming from the direction of the cemetery that is directly at the top of our block. I can literally see the cemetery from my house. Here's the video. She was wearing a dress, sparkly shoes, she didn't have a bag, and no phone that we could see. As soon as I saw this, I jumped up. I told my father-in-law, my uncle, and my cousin what I just saw, and we ran outside. We looked down the direction she was heading, and she was just standing on the street corner, looking down the street. Again, she didn't have a phone, she was just kind of standing there. We were trying to assess, is this a little kid? Is this a grown woman? What's going on? Because it was dimly lit and we couldn't see very well. And it's not like we were out there being quiet, and she had no reaction to people being about 20 feet away from her up the street. We decided to approach, and all of a sudden she beelined and went down the opposite direction. My uncle and cousin tried to follow her. They got to the bottom of the street, she was gone. They got to the next street, looked up and down, she was gone. They got to the last street, and she was gone. We got in our cars, we tried to drive around, because if this is a little kid, they should not be out. I'm a mom, I did not feel comfortable letting a little kid be out in the world. But she was nowhere to be seen. So, ghost? Maybe. Little girl on a midnight stroll? Maybe. Grown woman cosplaying as a little kid? I don't know. But we were all very rattled and didn't quite know what to make of the whole situation.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So, my grandparents' apartment was haunted the majority of my life until I cleansed it. And what's crazy is weird things would happen to everyone in my family except me. And I'm going to tell you some stuff that's happened. So, my cousin, he said that most of it happened in one room, my uncle's room. There is a one-bedroom apartment, it was my uncle's room. And so, apparently, my cousin said that one time, like, he went into my uncle's room and the lights were off, and then in the corner of the room, he sees, like, a row of pearls and a finger just, like, going like this, beckoning him, and he, like, obviously runs out. That happens when he's a kid. And then my uncle, when he was sleeping in the room, at like 2 a.m, I was at my grandparents' house when this happened. He runs out of the room screaming, being like, I just got shoes thrown at me, and apparently, like, the spirit in the room was throwing shoes at him in his sleep. It was like 2 a.m, and like there's no reason for him to make this up, and he's like literally like screaming. And my uncle had to sleep with the TV on every night, and he still does, sleeps with the TV on every night in that room. My dad says that when he sleeps in there, he sees like a little pioneer girl come out of the closet, and it's always in the closet. And my grandma has been thrown off her bed. My grandpa has seen mimics of my dad and my uncle, and my dad has seen mimics of my uncle, of my grandma. One time he said there was an earthquake, and he was a kid, and he was in the apartment, and like he was the only one in the apartment, and apparently like my grandma came up and helped him down the stairs and guided him outside. But once he got outside, he saw my grandma was already out there, and he turned around, and there was no one there. And I'm like, what? I'm trying to think, like, what else? Like, just, like, a bunch of stuff has happened, but, like, never to me. Can, like, someone explain that to me? How crazy that is? But I got tired of, like, the only thing I've seen, this is gonna be really dumb, though. One time, I was in the living room, and I kid you not, this is the only thing that's happened to me, and it's, like, dumb. Bolio bread, French bread, bolio. A piece of bolio got thrown across the room through like curtains, And I remember being like, what? But something like that's so small and like trivial that like doesn't amount to like all the other stuff. So like when it happened to me, I was just kind of like, oh my god, I booked, but like that, I don't know. Anyways, I cleansed my grandparents' apartment, and ever since then, they've never said anything happened since then. But like, can someone explain that? Well, actually, the only thing that happened to me, that's really notable was the first time I slept in my uncle's room was by myself. I was like 16 years old, and I was in there sleeping by myself, and it's in the daytime. This was in the daytime in the morning, and I get sleep paralysis for the first time, but it was weird. It felt like the AC was blowing on my face, and there was such a heavy pressure on me. But I'll never forget that coolness right here. It was just so cold. And then after that, I got sleep paralysis every single night for like 2 months, and it was the worst. And then I started getting sleep paralysis on and off. I would get it anytime I slept. Anytime I took a nap, I would get sleep paralysis. And I couldn't take naps anymore because I would just always get sleep paralysis. It was to the point where I wanted to go to the doctor for it because like I couldn't take a nap over like 45 minutes, or I would get sleep paralysis and then it would get worse, and then I couldn't take naps at all. And then it just gradually started going away. I still get sleep paralysis, but very like not super frequently, but my sleep paralysis is so bad that like I could be moving and I still can't wake up. Like people are like, oh, you just move your fingers. I move my fingers. I do this. You see my head shaking. Like I literally like shake my head trying to wake up and I can't. That's how like intense my sleep paralysis is. So did I book?
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So me and my friends, we are paranormal investigators. We do it for fun. We travel across the country. We go to abandoned places and we explore them and we investigate them. That's what we call it. Now, my grandmother was a very, very prominent person in my life, and we shared a love for ghosts and spirits and supernatural things. We just loved it. But after she passed, we were going to her viewing, I think. And my sister told me that before we had left, her and my mom were standing in the kitchen on either side of our island, and a penny fell right behind both of them, and they were the only ones. And the way that it's set up is we have a loft, and so it connects to our living room and our kitchen, and there's no way that a penny could have just fallen from where it fell from. So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool, maybe it was my mom, but it wasn't 100% positive. It could have been a coincidence. So we come back from the viewing, and my sister goes into her room, and my dad goes into his room, and me and my best friend are standing on either side of that same island. And we were talking about my mom, and a penny fell in the same spot that my sister said that the one before fell. And we thought it was kind of strange. And I picked up the penny, and it was on heads. And I picked it up and I looked at the date, and it was 1958, and that's the year that my grandmother was born. Now, throughout the past nearly 2 years since she's passed, there have been multiple incidents where pennies and coins just fall. And out of nowhere, they'll come zipping across the room, and it kind of freaks people out sometimes, especially when I'm in, like, small hangouts and a penny falls. I'm like, oh, that's my grandmother. But anyway, as I stated before, my friends and I are paranormal investigators, so we go across the country searching for spirits. And in January, we went on a trip to Indiana, and we investigated the Indiana State Sanatorium. Something happened, and there was a very, 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 very dark entity. And it nearly completely possessed my friend. It was definitely this close. We spent about 3 hours dealing with whatever this was. We didn't know how to approach it. We didn't know how to go about if we should leave. This was in the middle of a raging snowstorm. We didn't know if we should leave. Our Airbnb was 45 minutes away. We didn't know if we should stay. There were beds there that we could have stayed. We didn't know what to do. So we ended up leaving, and we got back to the Airbnb safely, but we were on a paranormal road trip, so we had other locations that we had to hit and that we spent our money on. So the next night we went to this place called Stark Saloon, and whatever it was from the night before followed us, and it started to attack or affect our friend. So we brought him outside, and my friend Kaylee, who does not believe in God or Jesus or anything Bible related. She's never read the Bible. She doesn't know anything about Christianity or Catholicism. All of a sudden, she just starts speaking the Lord's Prayer. Like, it's just flowing out of her. Like, it just is flowing out. And I've never seen her do that before. And I said, Kaylee, I didn't know you knew the Lord's Prayer. And she looked right at me and she said, I don't know the Lord's Prayer. I don't know how that just happened. And in my head, I'm just thinking, it's my mom. I just knew. I just could feel her there. My grandmother, I could just feel her. She was a raging Catholic. She was hands down, like, Catholicism. And the second I think that, I look down, and there's a penny right at my feet. And I go and I pick it up. And the date wasn't anything special, but just the fact that it was there. We were in the middle of the street. There was nobody, there was no cars or anything. It was like 2 a.m. The roads were all frozen over, so there was nobody driving. But just the fact that it was there after I felt her presence and after Kaylee just spewed out the Lord's Prayer was really, it makes you think. But there are plenty more ghost stories that I have, and we have. I do paranormal investigations. I post those on YouTube. I post clips of those here. So if you're interested in ghosts, definitely follow me. Also, if you're interested in just exploring abandoned places, this is the place. So if you guys enjoy content like this, I will definitely keep it up and post more ghost stories because I have way more than that.